Desiree. I'm going to be discussing the affirmative on foster care system. I'm going to go through the steps and label everything as well so we can go through why I think I should win this case. So first off, I want to start off with my background, and my background is about the foster care system. It's a temporary arrangement for children when their birth parents can't provide them care. The main objective is for them to be able, in the foster care system, is to be able to get their family to reunite, and when that's not the case, to be adopted into a better family. The U.S. federal government produces financial and legislative help for the foster care system. And now I'm going to go over my resolve. My resolve is the United States federal government should reform the foster care system. This is a policy proposition because of it being an asking for plan. It's asking for plan for action. And then my first claim is that the system needs to improve their resources and also support when it comes to school-age foster children. And then my second claim is the system needs to improve on still giving guidance to foster children who have already aged out of the system. Aged out. My definitions are, for example, age out, which is my definition for this is when you reach a certain age where you're no longer qualified for the financial assistance that the foster care system provides, as well as foster care system, which is a temporary arrangement for children who can no longer be cared for by their birth parents. So my first problem is one of the biggest importance in a child's life is their education, and it shapes them to be the person they are and their future as well. And they seek guidance for those who raise them, but what do you do when the ones who raise you aren't there anymore to provide that guidance? They start to fall behind, and some even give up to the point of dropping out. Even if they do finish, they tend to just hit a certain point where they have to do everything on their own. My first ground is the foster care crisis article, and they stated that 55% of children in foster care will drop out of school each year. My second ground is 20,000 foster children age out of the system and intend to begin life on their own. That also came from the foster care crisis article. My first harms is when they age out, they are no longer able to access the assistance they receive under the system. It stops at 18, sometimes even to 21 if they're lucky. But there's no guidance that comes with it afterwards. So my first grounds for that is the Title I of Foster Care Independence Act of 1999 provides funding for children in certain states till the age of 21. It's not all states, unfortunately. My second grounds is most children don't finish college till age 24. There's outside sources, but not as easy accessible or easy to find as it should be, and majority of them are nonprofits, which means it's very underfunded. My second harms is that the current foster children end up having higher risk at dropping out of school. Children need motivation when they go to school. They need to be pushed to know that they continue, and they need to know that they have someone on their side. But when you lack that family support, it makes it very hard for them to want to continue, and it definitely discourages them for some children to even want to pursue at all. Some children are even affected due to the trauma and lack of support the space at home, and the foster system lacks the resources because they do not provide for them like the resources that the teachers can access at school. We spend most of our time at school anyways than we do at home. And it would be best if us spending so much time in school, it would be nice to know that there's teachers and counselors there that can advocate for us so they can see that what we go through as a foster children. Grounds for that is from the National Working Group on Foster Care System, and it says that students in foster care score 16 percentile points below their peers in state standardized tests. Less than 60% of students in foster care finish high school, and 3% of that only have decided to attend post-secondary education. My second grounds is that 42% of children do not begin school immediately after entering foster care, often because of missing records and gaps in school attendance. Both of those came from the National Working Groups of Foster Care. And what they mean by missing records and gaps is you're going from school to school, things get lost. Just like how things can get lost in the mail, happens the same way when you're changing system out of system. My first inherency is that the foster children are discouraged from continuing or pursuing education because of their lack of bare minimum support that they receive from their family. My first grounds would be that the National Foster Youth Institute has stated that without stable homes and loving families to support them, many foster youth struggles to keep up with their peers in academic settings. Across the U.S., youth raised in foster care typically achieve at lower levels academically and are at higher risk of dropping out of school than their general population peers. My second grounds is from EdSource, and they stated that the whole landmark federal state policy reforms over the last 16 years have aimed to address school stability for foster youth. But too many of these children still get shuffled from school to school because of gaps in the policies or implemented and lack of cross-system collaborations between children welfare and education agencies. My second inherency is foster children are discouraged to pursue anything ever after aging out of the system because they don't have the support to fall back on. Just like us. Us as kids, when we go to college, we usually have our parents to support us financially, or even just to support us in general. But they lack that. My grounds is that almost all kids in foster care want to go to children. Why do so many make it? That's the name of the article. And the article stated that the reality of most kids in these communities to make it to college, even after achieving kids at low-income schools, they have a hard time navigating the steps to get to college. The grounds, too, is National Foster Youth Institute, and they state that after reaching age 18, 20% of children in the foster care system will become instantly homeless. 1 out of every 2 kids who age out will have some form of employment. That doesn't mean full-time, that doesn't mean career, that just means something to give them money, but not enough to continue pursuing anything. So, my plan for this resolve is that for my mandate, I had suggested that we should be advocating the resources that already exist to help the foster care. They need guidance for their transition to adulthood, and we need to invest in these groups that already exist but just don't get the exposure that they deserve. We also need to help by providing teachers and counselors with more resources so they can be better advocates for the foster children at school, something that we may not always have access to. My agency is that everyone that I believe has to be involved is pretty much everybody that's involved with the child's life. The teachers, the counselors, the CPS, anybody involved with the children should be involved, and that's including the federal government. The federal government can help by investing in these support groups that exist for those that age out. The foster parents in the foster care system should begin advocating and reaching out beyond the system to help with the foster children. Even though the children don't have resources themselves, they know that they can find it. And then the teachers and children and counselors should reach out as well and advocate for their school. The funding, most of the funding is mainly just donations, in my opinion. There's no, unless they were to want to create their own program, which would be great, but there's a lot of amazing programs out there that just don't get the exposure. So donations are good. Many of these resources are nonprofits and support groups, so they take anything because that's the whole point. It does not cost money to give schools the knowledge of the foster care system. To advocate, you just have to educate them on what they need to know about foster care system and just advocate for those children. It doesn't cost money to learn. The enforcement is the only violation or failure we would face is letting down the foster children who can have a better future for themselves moving forward if they just had the support that they deserve. Timeline, I honestly don't believe there's a timeline for this. I believe that when it comes to this, the sooner the better. There's no deadline to advocate, there's no deadline to learn, there's no rush. It's just more of you have to put your foot down and know when to do it. My solvency is the world follows the rules about how no child is left behind. We spend our whole school learning that no child is left behind. We know how far we can go when we put these resources and support in a child's life for their education. My ground is when we invest in the foster child's life through their education, it shows that despite their situation, they still have a future to prepare for so they can continue to strive for greatness. When teachers and counselors show their support to the foster children, they know that they have a helping hand for their education path and will not be left alone in this journey. My second grounds is that the percentage rates of high school dropouts for foster children will drop tremendously, and the rate for the graduation will definitely go up. Almost all foster children want to pursue in college. As said in the article, almost all want to, but none end up doing it. They want to, and they would have the confidence to do it without the fear of doing it on their own. My third ground is that being able to advocate for the foster system so they can bring light to the resources and support groups will show that even if you do age out of the system, you will never go through it alone. There will be guidance for you with people that want to help you, and even those that may have already been in the shoes of the foster children once before. And this is why all the reasons you should vote in favor of the affirmative. To better advocate for the child's life, to raise the percentage rate so they don't drop out and so they can even have more faith in going into college, not even going in but actually finishing, so they'll never feel like they are left alone in this journey, and to just be able to show that they won't be put through all of this alone.